A lot of people in our country are struggling to understand what's going on. Our politics and our society seem to have been turned upside down. Something is very wrong. We can all feel it. We know it. We just can't quite explain it. So let me ask you a question. Is there a ruling class in America? A ruling class that runs our government and country the way they see fit, regardless of the will of the people? The ruling class is very real, but contrary to what some believe, they are not a secret group of people conspiring to overthrow the government. They're not a cabal that meets in shadows and uses secret passwords to keep their identities hidden. In some respects, it's much worse than that. The ruling class that has been running America for the last several decades have no formal organization. They're much more subtle than that, and therefore much harder to stand up to. That's because our ruling class isn't so much a specific group of people as it is a culture. And a culture is much harder to define, especially when you begin to realize that the ruling class is made up of both Democrats and Republicans. We've been focusing on the wrong battles, and this serves their purpose as well. As long as the public thinks Democrats and Republicans are on different sides, it gives camouflage to the real agenda. And their pursuit of that agenda is tearing our country apart. Millions of people are being misled and manipulated to resist the peaceful transition of power in our government. That peaceful transition of power is what, for over 200 years, has set the example and empowered America to lead the world. However, like in many wars, many of the frontline soldiers have no idea what the war is really being fought over. 95% of the resistance is being manipulated to serve the purposes of the ruling class. You cannot defeat an enemy unless you can name him. So let's talk about the different groups that make up the ruling class. First and most obvious would be the ruling class politicians. While not all national politicians are part of the ruling class, those that are consider themselves professional politicians, and their agenda does not put America first. They have more allegiance to a globalist agenda of putting multinational corporations first. They promote unfair trade practices that transfer the wealth of middle America to other countries, immigration policies that keep wages low here at home, and international treaties that, in the name of environmentalism, allow other countries to retard and put caps on our industrial and technological progress. These policies are great for the multinational corporations, the stock market, and the globalist billionaires that own them, but they have hollowed out the middle class, stagnated our economy, and allowed other countries control and influence over our political system. The United States is in very real danger of having its government run by global interests that care very little about us. Besides politicians, the ruling class includes many of the people that run our mass federal bureaucracies. Whether political appointees or career civil servants, these are people that have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. They are known as the deep state, and they will do everything in their power to obstruct any changes to the policies and regulations they have put in place. They will do anything to hold on to their power. The ruling class even includes elements of the mainstream media as well as the judiciary. They fully support the globalist agenda and view the America First mindset as quaint, naive, and unsophisticated. The positions at the very top of the ruling class are occupied by the ruling class oligarchy. It is their billions of dollars that financially manipulate the lobbyists and politicians. Their multinational interests and globalist ideologies are well documented. If there is such a thing as a ruling class puppet master, they are the ones pulling the strings. As for the celebrities, they just want to be popular. Their knowledge of the issues tends to be very shallow, and because they want so badly to be popular, they are easily manipulated. They just want to be accepted into the cool kids group. In other words, they just want to be accepted by the rich and famous oligarchs they hang out with. So how do all these different groups, from media to bureaucrats, how do they coordinate with each other? If there is no behind-the-scenes conspiracy that is uniting them in common cause against the very ideals that made America great, well, it's simply the culture. Or maybe it's more accurate to say it's a counterculture. a counterculture that arrogantly, incorrectly, and tragically believes itself to represent the majority of America. For those of us that have never lived inside the Washington bubble, it is very difficult to understand the arrogance that goes along with it. These ruling class groups tell each other that they are the intellectual and moral elite, that only they can guide our society and our government, and they deeply resent we the people telling them how to run things. To truly understand how self-delusional this mindset can be, I'm going to give you an analogy. If you're not already, imagine yourself to be a doctor or surgeon. You rightly feel that you and your peers are uniquely qualified to guide the health of Americans and remedy their health challenges. An MD and a chiropractor may have different ideas on how to treat back pain, for example. But at the end of the day, you both recognize each other as qualified health professionals, and society agrees with you. We even have laws preventing others from practicing medicine without a license. The expertise of the mainstream medical community is unquestioned. But what if one day, seemingly out of the blue, our society made the decision to scrap all this science-based medicine stuff? What if society suddenly decided to go all in on voodoo medicine or ancient Chinese herbal remedies or whatever? As a doctor, what would be your reaction? Disbelief? Certainly. Denial? Probably. Would you be convinced that America is making a huge mistake that could cost lives? Absolutely. Would your anger be so strong that you would break laws to defy it? Would you justify violating the Constitution in order to save people from themselves? Maybe. And it wouldn't be just you. Everyone involved in healthcare, from receptionists to pharmaceutical reps, would be just as outraged. This is an absurd example, but this is exactly how the ruling class is feeling from the last election. Lifelong Republican and Democrat politicians are like MDs and chiropractors. They may disagree about policy, but at the end of the day, they consider themselves elite professionals with specialized and unique knowledge that separates them from you and me. Many of them have spent their entire lives learning what to say, how to act, and how to look. They have submerged themselves in the Ivy League groupthink and believe themselves uniquely qualified to rule. From their viewpoint, their expertise and mandate to rule should be unquestioned. There's a problem with that, however. Our founding fathers, in their unique wisdom, gave us a constitution that specifically forbids an all-powerful ruling class. It would be unconstitutional to create a law saying you cannot practice politics without a license. No voice can be deemed lawfully superior to another's. No man is above the law, and certainly no politician can exercise rule without the consent of the people. The purpose of our government is to provide for the general welfare of we the people, not just the self-appointed elite and their globalist benefactors. Once the revolution was won, George Washington turned down the opportunity to be crowned King of America. Once the Constitution was written, Thomas Jefferson said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Regardless of how put out our ruling class leaders feel from being rejected by the American electorate, regardless of how horrified they are that the American people have decided to scrap all their expertise and collective wisdom, they have a constitutional duty to hand over the reins of power in a peaceful and orderly manner. Except that's not happening. Ruling class politicians of both parties are conspiring to obstruct President Trump's administration. The Senate slow walks his appointments and denies him the people he needs to administer his policies. Some Republican senators openly oppose him. The House plays games with immigration, healthcare, and the budget, while its Republican leadership pretends there is nothing it can do. With the help of the outgoing administration, our Justice Department, along with the FBI and our intelligence services, have weaponized themselves against first his campaign and then his administration. And all the while, the ruling class media knows if they can sufficiently distort our president's accomplishments and wildly exaggerate or even invent his flaws, they could reduce his popularity to the point where they can safely remove him from office. Believing the issue more important than party politics, This ruling class culture pats itself on the back and tell each other that the ends justify the means. They are so wrapped up in their elitist culture that many of them truly believe they are saving the country and saving lives by opposing this commoner that doesn't have their sophistication, intellect, or understanding of the issues. They believe themselves to be heroes. They believe themselves to be brave. But in reality, they are the very epitome of a ruling class aristocracy that is being manipulated and controlled by billionaires and multinational corporations. Theirs is not an act of patriotism. It is a bloodless or soft coup being waged to benefit a globalist ideology, and most of them are its unwitting soldiers. We've let these self-described sophisticates run things for several decades now, and they've made a mess of things. And now, when the American people say we've had enough, they don't want to turn over the reins of power. We must find a peaceful but firm way to remove them from office. If we do that, everything else will follow. That's why we founded the Primary the Ruling Class movement. We've started a political action committee, PRC PAC, to do just that. We're a grassroots organization that's building fast, and we've even got a way you can earn money for supporting your country. There's no reason not to check us out, and there's no reason to just sit back and watch what is happening to our democracy. In the words of Edmund Burke, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Don't do nothing. Be a hero. Step up. Your country needs you. We need you. Your family needs you to protect their future. Show your children by example that the United States is something worth standing up for. Check out the link on this page or talk to the person that shared this video with you.